Okay, there are a lot of times when you want to work inside a virtual machine and something doesn't work for you. That happens quite often for a lot of people here. So let me explain this, what we have right now here. I have a Windows 8 computer that I have RDP'd remote desktop to a Windows server. The Windows server has Hyper-V running on it for virtual machines, and inside the Hyper-V machine, I created a virtual instance where I have installed Solaris 11. In other words, the, the Solaris computer is called build-GUI, and it's on a computer called Antri RDP, whatever. That's not important at this point in time here. So what I've done is I've connected up to an instance of an operating machine inside a Hyper-V, and I've connected through remote desktop. Now, when I connect up, Solaris and other operating systems have certain problems dealing with certain drivers. For example, in Windows, my mouse and keyboard work perfectly, not a problem. I remote desktop to the Hyper-V on another Windows server, everything works perfectly. As soon as I go into the virtual instance, or the virtual operating machine, or virtual machine operating machine, whichever label you want to put it, all of a sudden my keyboard will work but my mouse won't. For example, take a look at what I have on my screen here. Right now, I'm moving my mouse across the screen. My mouse being moved across the screen is my Windows mouse. You will notice inside the Solaris operating system there is a little arrow. This arrow is my Unix Solaris mouse. So I want to move my mouse into and take control of the mouse inside my virtual operating system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go click inside, or I click on. So in other words, I've clicked on Bill, this window saying that I should be inside the screen. You'll notice all of a sudden my mouse changed. My mouse now is a little dot. But when I move it around in here, and even if I click inside the box, that arrow, you'll notice, doesn't move. So for example, right now I have left my Windows machine. I am now inside my Hyper-V machine, and now I want to put my mouse inside of the Solaris operating system. If I click on it, I get an error message. Mouse not captured in remote desktop session. All right, so I'm using a remote desktop session. Not a problem. I say, okay. That means I have no mouse. So let's just try some keyboard functions. And all of a sudden, when I try the keyboard functions, Control Escape generically will open up some sort of application inside the program. If I press Control Escape right now, watch what happens. I kick out of my remote desktop, and it takes me to my Windows, whatever that screen is. Anyways, now if I click back inside, you can see that I'm inside that operating system here. Okay, if I go over top of it, then I'm inside the Hyper-V scenario, but I still can't click inside of this situation here. There's a reason for that. Because I have connected in through a remote desktop connection from my computer to a server someplace else, the keyboard functions have been turned off inside the remote desktop connection. It's got nothing to do with your operating system that you installed on your virtual machine. It has everything to do with your remote desktop. So I'm going to basically get out of and stop my remote connection. So I'm just going to close that off here. Your remote session will be discontinued. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. Now let me show you what I'm going to type to go into here. Right now you see my normal screen with all the rest of the garbage on here. So I'm going to now type in REMOTE. Basically what it is just to open up my remote desktop. Okay, here I've opened up my remote desktop connection. All right. Now, the thing that is important is not so much as what you're doing, where you're connecting to. That's important, of course, and your username, etc. But if I click on Show Options here, where it is important is if you go to where it says Local Resources. And then if you go down to local resources, there is a setting called apply Windows key combinations, and it's only when using the full screen. This is the key that is preventing me from using a keyboard inside my Solaris virtual machine through an remote desktop call. What it's telling me is Windows key combinations will only work if my remote desktop and all the applications or all the remote servers inside are usable inside the full screen. In other words, I have to make sure that when I'm connecting to it, I will need to have it full on my monitor, full screen. Well, there are times when you really don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to change my option on the keyboard for not only when using full screen, but I want to set it up so it says on remote computer. All right. So in other words, my Windows key combinations will work on the remote computer. Okay. So now if I type in connect, right, it's opening up my remote desktop and it's telling me I'm connecting up to the server, wherever that may be here. I type in my password and I go OK. And it's going through the process of connecting up, recreating the remote desktop from my machine. So my server or my computer is trying to connect up to the remote Windows 2012 server. And you'll notice on my screen what happens is it's already opened up to the machine. All right. And because when I logged out, I left everything still running. So when I log back in, it just picks up where I left off. But the difference is I made the change inside the remote desktop on my computer before I connected to this machine. I have connected to this machine now. Now, again, here's my moving my mouse. You'll notice on my mouse for Windows in the Hyper-V still has access to the top options. But when I go inside my working desktop space, right, there's supposed to be where the mouse is. I'm supposed to pick it up. If I click on it, and my mouse isn't working, not captured in remote desktop here. This is a common problem. As I said earlier, in virtual machines, the drivers for a mouse or mouse pointer in your Windows and then going through a virtual machine, then working inside Solaris, they don't like each other sometimes. So I'm going to say, okay, let's just go continue on, right? I have no mouse inside Solaris, but now let's try this. Remember a few minutes ago when I hit Control Escape, it kicked me out of the screen and showed me the Windows choices. If I go Control Escape and I'm inside my virtual machine, now my keyboard and the shortcuts are working. Now I'm inside my Solaris instance with a functioning keyboard with keyboard shortcuts. Now using a down arrow, I can move down, right, to wherever I want to view. If I want to go up, I press the right arrow, I move over to places. If I click the left arrow, I go back to applications, right? I can choose whatever programs I want here. I can click, now I'm in Access, I right click, I went to Archive Manager, I can go to Calculator, okay, I can do my character map, I've got my gedit text editor, I can go to terminal screen, right? I have the availability. I'm just moving things around with my arrow key. If I press press escape on the key computer, I press escape, I'm out of there here again. See, what happens is the setting when you're doing a remote desktop connection, the setting originally said that you had to have your remote desktop in full screen and everything working inside of it. Well, there are times when I don't want everything to be inside of full screen for whatever the reason being. So I have to go into my remote desktop. I have to go into the local resources and I have to go down to where it says keyboard and I have to make that change. If you make that change when you're RDPing into your Hyper-V virtual instance here, your keyboard will work inside your virtual machine like Solaris.